What's up, guys? Welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Riddell, and today we recap Game 5 of the 2021 World Chess Championship. Despite 4 draws up to this point, it has been a very fun and interesting match to follow, and here we see Carlsen with the black pieces against Nepo, who for the third straight time opts for the Ruy Lopez as he plays the move e4, and against e5 plays knight f3, followed by bishop b5. Here we see Carlsen go with his usual line of a6, followed by knight f6, and then here after castling kingside we see bishop e7, rook e1, and b5 attacking the bishop on a4, and now following bishop e3 we see Carlsen play castling kingside. Now in the first 2 games in which we've seen this position in this match, we first saw h3, and then in the second game we saw the move a4. Today we see a4 again. Some of you may be wondering, wait, why isn't Nepo going with the main option of c3? Probably because he's trying to avoid the move d5 with the martial attack. I mean, this is one of Carlsen's strongest openings. He is very well versed in the lines and variations and has a ton of experience with this move. Here, the best way to play for white is by taking that pawn on d5 and then simply taking the pawn on e5. So here Carlsen is actually offering up a pawn, but here what we see is that black's able to take that knight off the board, play c6, and here black has formed a very solid pawn structure on the queen side of the board, supporting that knight on d5. And notice here it's a little bit awkward for white to develop. So if we see a move like d4, black can now play bishop d6, followed by queen h4, threatening to capture on h2. And if a move like g3, we have queen h3. The light squares are very weak for white here, and we have a ton of activity and a ton of potential play. I can totally understand why Nepo is avoiding this line. So here, guys, we don't see the move c3 allowing the martial attack, but an anti-martial variation with a4. And here white's actually threatening to capture on b5. Whole idea being if a takes b5, we have rook takes a8. Now, guys, surprisingly, I mean, up to this point, this is the same exact game that we saw in game 3. I was surprised to see Carlsen switching the game up because he seemed to really defend that variation easily following the move bishop b7. This is what he played in game 3, and he had good success with it. But now we see the move rook b8, simply defending the pawn on b5 this way. And now white captures on b5, and we see a takes b5. Now, at first sight, yes, this rook is very active. But at the same time, I mean, starting with the square of a4, this rook cannot go anywhere without getting captured. So I don't think at the moment we need to be too worried about this rook being an active major piece. And here we see Nepo play the move h3, another anti-martial move. Again, he could play c3, but this allows the move d5. Magnus Carlsen expanding the center of the board. It does look a little bit different with these a-pawns off the board, but the idea is somewhat the same. I mean, white's going to take on e5, we're going to capture back, play c6, solidifying the positioning of that knight, and then the very next move, play bishop d6, queen h4, attacking that pawn on h2, and as always, after g3, we have queen h3, and this is exactly what Carlsen is trying to get. So here we see again the martial attack avoided by Nepo, and instead just the move h3, in which Carlsen now plays the move d6, and now we see Nepo play c3, whole idea being, look, he plays the move h3, which really does solidify the pawn structure on the king side of the board against a move like queen h4 in the future, which was threatening to capture on h2. So this move h3 buys us some time, and on top of that, black has already moved their pawn. So Nepo's going, look, you moved your pawn once. If you want to waste a tempo and move that pawn again, you can. Here Carlsen decides not to, and instead plays b4, attacking the pawn on c3. Now, guys, in chess, we need to be very careful when moving our pawns. Here, Nepo could have taken on b4, but then all of a sudden, the pawn structure, specifically that pawn on b2, as well as the dark square of d4, this just kind of messes up white's game plan. And if white plays a move like c4, it makes this bishop on b3 very inactive. We're able to then play a move like knight d7, eyeing the square of c5. Guys, in chess, be very careful, really when making any move, but especially with pawn moves, because if you make a pawn move, you cannot bring that pawn back. Here we just see the move d3. Nepo going, look, if you want to spend all that time playing b4, I'm just going to play d3, allowing you to take on c3, which is exactly what Carlsen did, in which case Carlsen continues with d5. Now again, Nepo continues with the quiet option of knight b d2. Notice here how he's just playing calm, playing good chess, naturally developing his pieces, not trying to do anything crazy. He could have taken on d5, whole idea being after knight takes d5, we now win the pawn on e5. And usually, in this position, after knight takes e5 and rook takes e5, we're able to play c6, followed by the move bishop d6. However, here in this position, I think black's main idea is actually bishop e6, kind of changing our focus here. Here, the bishop defends the knight on d5, and honestly, I mean, we have a ton of pressure here. Our rook on b8 is very active. Our queen on d8 is also an active piece, indirectly putting some pressure on d3. We also have ideas of bishop f6 attacking the rook and further attacking the pawn on c3, and if white moves this rook back with a move like rook e1, we now have the killer idea of knight takes c3, getting that pawn back, giving up a piece, but getting that piece right back the next move. Here in this position, we're attacking the queen on d1, we're attacking the pawn on d3, and the very next move, we're going to play bishop b4, pinning the knight to the rook on e1, and here black simply has the edge. So again, guys, we don't see Nepo taking on d5 and then capturing that extra pawn, giving Carlsen the opportunity to gain counterattacking chances. We instead just see the move knight bd2, in which case Carlsen responds by taking the pawn on e4 and then playing bishop d6. Now, at first sight, this move doesn't seem very good. I mean, why didn't Carlsen play the move bishop c5, activating his bishop instead of a move like bishop d6, which honestly seems kind of cramped? What on earth is Carlsen doing? Well, what he's doing is trying to free up this knight on c6, going a move back the only 4 squares that this knight can move to, all of which the knight would simply get captured right off the board. Here, Carlsen is playing bishop d6, wanting to bring this knight to the king side of the board and make it an aggressive and attacking piece. So here we see the move queen c2 from Nepo, h6 from Carlsen, and then we see Carlsen waste no time in playing knight e7, and knight g6. Here Nepo continues with bishop e3 and another interesting move from Carlsen with queen e8. I mean, this just doesn't seem the most natural. In fact, if I was playing this move, queen e8 would have never even crossed my mind. I mean, I would probably play a move like knight f4, maybe look at ideas like bishop d7. I mean, just try to play something more natural, even queen e7. But guys, queen e8 is very natural and very flexible in this position. I mean, really what this queen does is it defends f7. It defends the square of e6, which would offer up a trade with that bishop on b3. And now if bishop a4 is ever played, we can always just play bishop d7, forming a battery ram against that minor piece. Here we see the move rook ed1 from Nepo, and honestly, I think that c4 is a good option. A lot of commentators were looking at this move, whole idea being that white wants to play c5, kicking this bishop back to e7, and things are just not looking good for black. I mean, we could play the move c5, but now this bishop on d6 is a primary target, and it's very inactive. I mean, it's even worse than before. White's able to play moves like bishop a4, knight f5 attacking the bishop, rook d1 attacking the bishop. I mean, this is just not comfortable for black, and really there's no counterattacking chances at all for black in this position. However, honestly, instead of playing c5, I kind of like playing bishop b4 and then playing the move c5, kind of opening up black's game a little bit, getting this bishop out of the very cramped fortress. And now if a move like bishop a4, we have queen e7, but I mean, even then, I still like white's game. I can play a move like bishop c6, bishop d5 ideas in the air. I'm honestly a little bit surprised that Nepo did not go for this variation. It seems as if white is the one in the driver's seat, but he decided not to. And let's be honest, Carlsen would have continued to play very good, resourceful, and defensive chess. However, here instead of c4, trying to play the immediate c5, we see rook ed1, and honestly, maybe here Nepo is trying to buy some time. Maybe he's trying to play rook d1 so that he can now play c4 without having to worry about bishop b4 adding a tempo against that rook. But now we see the move bishop e6, which fully stops c4 from being able to be played because of queen c6. Notice here, if a move like c5, we simply win the bishop on b3, and if a move like bishop a4, because of our bishop on e6, we're simply able to snatch that pawn off the board, and now black is simply up a pawn, and white really has nothing to show for it. So bishop e6 really does effectively stop c4 because of that queen c6 idea, giving us a dead even game according to the computer. Here from white, we see bishop a4, and now Carlsen just bring the bishop back to d7, and then the very next move wastes no time in trading off the pieces. Bishop takes a4, queen takes a4, and after rook takes a4, we see rook a8. Now here, guys, Nepo plays a strong move that I think can be a good lesson. If he takes on a8, here we're simply going to take back, and black is going to have full control of that very important a file. So here we see the move rook da1. Guys, if you have a rook in a position like this and there is contention on the file, back your rook up, right? Back your homie up. Here, black is going to have to either take the rook or move the rook away. In both cases, you're going to have the file. Here, Carlsen captures the rook, on a4. And now we see the move rook b8. So white has an active rook, black has an active rook, and now we see the move rook a6. It seems as if white has a slight edge in this position and a little bit more flexibility in counterplay. Once this position was reached, many were going, look, I mean, this is an easy draw. There's no way that this isn't a draw. And Carlsen did play very good, resourceful defensive chess. However, this position is harder to play than one may think. We see Carlsen play the very strange looking move, knight e8. What on earth is Carlsen doing? And the very next move, play knight f8. Here, Carlsen, guys, is not playing for the win. He's instead building a fortress. A fortress in chess is really trying to build a structure which the opponent cannot break through. The very next move after knight f5, we see this knight go to e6. And following knight c4, we see rook d8. The whole idea being if this knight takes, we'll simply take back with the knight. If the knight wants to capture again, okay, we can capture the knight back with the rook. We're simply looking to defend that bishop on d6 as much as we can. Here we see f3 from Nepo. I mean, just a good move, defending that pawn on e4, kind of backing up their structure. And here, many commentators were supporting the move h5. Whole idea being that they were worried about g4, h4, and h5. I mean, white just overwhelmingly controlling the king side of the board. But guys, Carlsen doesn't even care. In fact, he plays the move f6, making it so that this knight cannot even move. However, again, how is white going to break through this fortress? We see Nepo continue to quote-unquote improve his position with moves like g4. We then see king f7, h4, and now after bishop f8, we see Nepo play king e2, slowly activating the king. And now from Carlsen, we see knight d6, attacking the knight on c4. We see knight c takes d6 with check, and following bishop takes d6 and h5, Nepo has got everything he wanted on the king side, a huge advantage in space, and a knight on f5, which seems very active. But yet again, after the move bishop f8, what else can white do? We see the move rook a5, but honestly, I mean, the only way I see for white to really try to improve their position is by playing a move like knight h4 and then throwing the knight into g6. But even then, we're just going to play rook d8, go back and forth, and all of us would be sitting here wondering, how can Nepo improve? And the question is that he cannot. This position is a dead draw. There's simply no way to break through this very strong fortress that Carlsen set up. Following the move bishop f8, we do not see knight h4 shuffling this knight around, but instead the move rook a5, trying to create something here by offering up a rook trade, but we don't want to take this rook and allow white to take on d5, creating an imbalance in this position and forcing our knight all the way back to d8, and then being able to march their pawns up the board. We instead just see rook a8. After this, we see the rooks shuffle around a little bit. I mean, rook d1, rook a2 check, rook d2, rook a1, and here both sides agree to a draw. Nepo's position looks very strong, but there's simply no way to break through Carlsen's fortress. Very good and resourceful defensive chess from the current world champion. So guys, there you have it, a fifth straight draw. But guys, all of these games have been very interesting, especially games 1, 2, and even 5. I mean, I really did think that this game was interesting. Carlsen found some very interesting looking moves. I mean, bishop d6, knight e8, queen e8. Many of us, including myself, were wondering what on earth is this guy trying to do. But as you saw in the end, he was simply setting up that fortress, and there's simply no way for white to break through in this position. We're sitting at 2.5 points apiece, and tomorrow is a rest day. So our next video will be coming out on Friday as we review Game 6, as Carlsen tries to take a lead in this match with the white pieces. Let me know how you think this match is going. Let me know how you're liking the videos, and if you have any recommendations for how to improve them. I mean, obviously on this channel, guys, I've been focusing a ton on openings. This is a little bit of a switch up, so I appreciate you guys that have been supporting me through this little series these next few weeks. And yeah, this whole YouTube thing has been a ton of fun for me. So again, thank you guys for all the support. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching today's video. If you'd like to see my top 5 chess players of all time, which by the way, Carlsen is #1, click the video to the left. If you'd like to see 5 fun facts about Magnus Carlsen, click that video to the right. Leave a comment down below to let me know what other videos you'd like to see covered on this channel. And as always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.